Kia ora, New Zealand. I learned that phrase from Tuvai when she was emailing me back and forth, and so I just wanted to share that New Zealand Kiwi greeting. And thank you so much for the warm welcome here in New Zealand. It's been a little bit of challenge around some of my logistics. I was just mentioning to the Council General that I felt a little bit like a glamorous version of Janet Jackson with like this ongoing wardrobe malfunction. Because I lost my bags and this, that, and whatever. But I'm here, and I'm really, really delighted to be here. Again, my name is Timothy Kane, and I am a son, I am a brother, I'm an uncle, I'm a friend, I'm a Roman Catholic, I'm an educator, I'm an activist, and I'm a cisgender, white gay man who uses the pronouns he, him, and his. Yeah. It's so wonderful to be here with such an empowered, beautiful, and creative group as all of you. And I really had the honor to sort of chat with a whole bunch of people just yesterday, and it's been really fun starting to get to know you, and hopefully we can continue the conversations today. I had the privilege of going right before my trip here to New Zealand to Houston, Texas, where the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force had their annual conference. I don't know if people are familiar with that US-based organization, but they do great work. And one of their slogans is, "Power is sexy." I believe that, and I hope you believe that. And if you do believe that, then this place and this time is the sexiest place on the planet because of all of you. Yeah. So give yourself a hand. I also wanted to give a few shout outs and thank yous to those who made this gathering possible. The U.S. Department of State, the U.S. Embassy here in New Zealand, and Consul General Jim Donegan, Rainbow Youth, and all the other LGBT organizations that have done so much work on and for our behalf to make this gathering possible, and for all of you, for coming here, for being present, for sharing your wisdom, because we need your wisdom. We need to work together and learn with and from each other about all these challenges and successes that we face here as LGBTIQ individuals and allies. My talk is entitled Celebrating Youth Identities to Educate, Advocate, and Empower. And I'm hoping this will be a very interactive discussion. I love interaction around these topics because you have so much to say. Mickey, oh my God, if I lived in Fiji and I could vote, I would be voting for you for president. And I love talking and sharing by starting with a celebration. So that's the beginning of my talk, and I want to give a shout out of celebration to Robbie and Tuvai for organizing and creating the gender neutral bathrooms that we have here today. To Duncan from the Rainbow Youth Organization doing all of his work. Way to go, Duncan. Sam with the Student Volunteer Army, and I want to read your plan. He said he has the SAM plan. I want to read that plan. I'm really curious, like what's included in that. And I especially want to give a shout out of celebration to all the island delegates who have traveled to come here today to share, again, their culture, their wisdom, their perspective, and their power as LGBTQI individuals. So congratulations. So besides celebrating individuals, we're also really celebrating identities. We are Maori, we are Kiwi, we are Samoan, we are Tongan, we are Fijian, we are African, we are American, and many, many more. We're also Ratana, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Christian, humanist, atheist. We're also HIV positive and HIV negative. And most importantly for this gathering, we are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, queer, and ally. And I'd like to talk about these identities pretty much with two offerings. One is an image and one is an exercise. The image I'd like to use, it's kind of a simple one. Actually, I think in the United States, this is like the logo of a office supply company. But anyway, I love this image when I think about all of our overlapping, intimate, and powerful identities. I think of all of us, honestly, as like this multicolored rubber band ball. It's three-dimensional. It's flexible, it bounces. And each of our identities that we bring today to this conference and hopefully to our workplaces, our places of worship, our families, our friends, our communities, hopefully we can bring all of these identities that make us who we are. And it's interesting because, like, if you take out one identity, like let's just say I take out my Roman Catholic identity, and I try to leverage or work or engage the world pretty much just through that one identity, you know, not that much happens. But when I bring my whole self to the table, when I am invited to bring all of my beautiful identities together, all of them, and all of yours, that's when real power happens. I've always wanted to do this, so I'm just going to try it. So let's just see how powerful our identities can be. You know, it didn't break. That ball didn't break. It's resilient, it's bouncy, it's beautiful, it's flexible, and that's what happens. I really do believe that's what happens when we're invited and we have the courage to bring all of our identities to the table. So now I want to do a little bit of an exercise. And the idea of a safe space was brought up yesterday, and I think it's a really, really important one. And there's lots of ways to create a safe space. And one way is to start sharing with each other our identities. So what I wanted to have you do is find right next to you, and hopefully maybe someone you don't know so well, what I'm going to call a conversational confidant. So just pair up with one person, and I just want to ask you a few simple questions to share with that person. Your name, where you're from, and 3 of your many identities. All right? So name, where you're from, and 3 of your identities. So go ahead, and please share that. I wanted to see if 3 people would be willing and open and comfortable and feel safe enough to share what you shared with your conversational confidant. So I heard New Zealand is sunny, so I brought a hat from the George Washington University. And I heard New Zealand's rainy, so I brought a GW umbrella. And then someone else told me that you're a little over Lord of the Rings. And that you might be looking for something else to focus on. So I brought our mascot, the hippo. So the first person gets to choose whoever, oh wow, all right, come on up. So please state your name, where you're from, and the identities you feel comfortable sharing.
Kia ora whānau. My name's Lee, but actually my name's Liana, but I prefer to be called Lee or Mama Lee. I identify as an open bisexual woman. My graduation last year in April, I came out to my whānau. It's been very hard, but I'm over it. I came to the other side of the bridge or the rainbow, and I'm here now. So. Oh yeah, I'm quite I identify also as an eclectic pagan, so I sort of grab different spiritual knowledge from everywhere and just put it into one ball like this and just call it my own. So I'm quite spiritual in that sense. And I'm also a proud Pacific Islander. My family are from Tahiti and the Cook Islands, so I'm very proud to be who I am, and I'm very glad to be here today. After many youth for suicide attempts, I'm happy to be here, so really lovely to meet you.
That's a bisexual hippo, you know. Anyone else feel brave and empowered and safe to come on up, please?
I'm Donna. Was I meant to say my name?
Name, place, and whatever identities you feel comfortable to share.
Well, as I said in my group, I was born in Whangarei, I grew up in Wellington, and I'm living in Auckland. Because you know how awkward that question is, like, where are you from? Like, you don't even know, like, they think you're from the same country, like, what do they want to know? But, I'm lesbian, and I'm Roman Catholic as well. I'm actually a convert, I'm kind of like, but I'm more like eclectic Catholic.
Yeah. Eclectic pagan?
Yeah, I'm sort of constructing my own version. They call me cafeteria Catholic. But
you can choose all the different things?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And I'm also a greenie, but like an introvert greenie, not like an activist greenie, so you probably you wouldn't see me I just speak. I don't know. Yeah.
So you're working a little bit behind the scenes, trying to advocate for environmental sustainability?
Yeah.
That's
I sort of want to integrate it into my Catholicism as well.
That's great. Excellent. All right, thank you. So the George Washington University is based in Washington, D.C. We have about 30,000 students. Our sort of claim to fame is that we're about 5 blocks from the White House. We have a lot of friends in the White House. We have a lot of friends. The LGBT liaison to President Obama in the White House is a GW graduate student. He invites us to the White House all the time. Anyone who wants to come visit GW, it'd be my honor to have you come, to have you study, and maybe we can arrange for a White House tour as well. All right, everyone, come on up, come on up.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Republican quote.
All right.
Hi, I'm Dan. I identify I grew up in Auckland. I've been living in Christchurch for the last 5 years. Yay, earthquake. I identify as a gay male. I use male pronouns. I also identify as, my environmentalism is cyclist, is how I identify that. I do not use a car when I can possibly avoid it.
Wow.
I also identify as Kiwi rather than New Zealand European. Those surveys annoy me when they put that. I think I like embracing culture here, and I prefer using that when I go overseas. So, yeah.
All right. Great. You know, it's a really simple exercise to start sharing who we are with one other person, but look at what happens. And hopefully it's a seed that we can all plant every day, every place, everywhere we go, because this is when people get to know us as LGBTQI ally folks who want to change the world to make it a better place for everybody. So besides talking about these overarching identities that we all have, all of these things that, I always cradle this ball because I feel like we really are sacred beings. We really are. And this, all of our identities are a precious thing that we should take good care of, and other people should take good care of. Besides talking about these overarching identities, I also wanted to have us talk a little bit about our values, about queer values. Family is a queer value. Faith is a queer value. And service is absolutely a queer value. So I wanted to go a little bit into that service element and offer you, and maybe pick up a little bit where Sam left off with his wonderful presentation yesterday, and talk about my understanding of service as a queer value. And we actually we do a lot of service, especially around our Martin Luther King holiday in the United States, because Martin Luther King really advocated for civic engagement and service. And so we had a big contingent from our LGBT office, and we had buttons that said, basically it said, service is a queer value. And so everyone knew that we were out there, we were LGBTQI, and we were serving our community. So I used to direct the Office of Community Service at the George Washington University, and in that role, I was asked, along with this incredible staff, student staff, graduate staff, and professional staff, to oversee an amazing initiative. It was called the Michelle Obama Service Challenge. And, again, because we're kind of close to the White House, we do a lot of things with the White House. And so Michelle Obama contacted our university and said, if you all can perform and record, and the record part that was the tricky part, 100,000 hours of student service, actually with student staff and faculty service, I will come and speak at your commencement. And so I got a call on the phone. It's like, Timothy, guess what? You're going to be overseeing this initiative here at the university. And it was really my honor. And GW students, primarily students, completed 164,000 hours of service to our community, working in soup kitchens, working with LGBT youth organizations, tutoring, doing all sorts of things. And then Michelle Obama came and she spoke, which was really great. It's a feather in our cap, and it was really an honor to have her there. I didn't meet her. Oh well. Anyway. But then, and so that's sort of like the traditional kind of service that you think about. But then I also oversaw our alternative breaks program. And I don't know if you have them at your universities, where during spring break, winter break, maybe summer break, instead of going off someplace, in our case in the United States, students go off to Cancun, and they kind of drink a lot, and the drinking age is lower than in the United States, and there's some problems with that. So what we try to do at our university is to promote alcohol drug-free service trips over spring break and winter break. And a couple years ago, I went on a trip to Guayaquil, Ecuador, and it really changed my perspective about service. We went to serve with and for a community that they said was a slum built on a dump. And it literally was. It was just basically this land that was kind of a big landfill, and people had, because they were so poor, they know the place to go, so they started building houses on it and reclaiming that land, and it was called a slum built on a dump. And our service was very interesting, and I really invite us all to think about this kind of service, especially in terms of service as a queer value. The service that we did was not the traditional kind of service. We didn't build any houses. We didn't tutor any kids. Our service was to listen and get to know our host community. That was our service. And after that trip, I ended up writing a very short reflection, and I entitled it, "The Service of Being Before the Service of Doing." The service of being before the service of doing. Because I think a lot of us who come from privileged backgrounds, when we want to serve other people, we end up starting from up here. And no matter how hard I try, unfortunately, somehow in my crazy thinking, the people I'm serving are below me. We're not on an equal level. There isn't reciprocity. We're not partners. And so this service trip was so special because it helped me rethink service. Basically, the lesson I took away around the service of being is that we need to be with each other. We need to know about each other. We need to cherish all of our identities when we engage each other, and then we can do the service of doing. Because if you don't start off with the relationships, things often or too often could go astray, and the power and control dynamics that are insidiously woven into all of life, it seems, on this planet, start to creep in. And all of a sudden I feel better than the people that I say that I'm trying to serve. But if we realize that we're all of the same value, we're all worthy as human beings, even if I can do things quicker or better or more with technology, or have more resources to do things, then we're on a level playing field. We're equal and co-partners in the service of doing. And I think that really speaks to our time here today, because we need to get to know each other. We need to build the relationships and do the service that is a queer value together. And sometimes it's not so easy. Sometimes, some of us feel shy. Sometimes I feel shy in different scenarios. But I really invite us all to think about that as the starting point, because often we skip that step. And when we skip that step, we think of ourselves up here, and those that we hope to serve are not at that same level. And when we start the service of being, we really are starting to educate each other and ourselves. And I wanted to share two really short and simple stories about education around LGBTQI issues. My mom and my dad, I'm one of 9 children, and I'm the only gay guy that I know of in my family. And I have 26 nieces and nephews. Yeah, I know. Oh yeah, the good old Catholic, yeah. Oh, the story. I didn't even want to go there about my father talking to our Catholic priest about using contraceptives, because he said we've been married 6 years, we have 6 children, and I want to start using birth control. And the priest, sorry, I'm going to digress a little bit. The priest said to my dad, he goes, well, can't you have more self-control? And my dad was like, well, I love my wife, and she's kind of a hottie. And then he goes, well, maybe you should sleep in separate beds. No offense to the Catholic institution, I love our new Pope, just to put that out there. But so then my dad goes, we already sleep in separate beds. And he's like, ooh. So then he goes, well, maybe you can sleep in a separate room from your wife, from my mom. And he goes, all the kids are in all the other rooms. And so the final pearl of wisdom that my father received was, I think you should put a cot out in the garage and sleep out there. My goodness. Anyway, so my parents are really, really liberal, open, and affirming. And my father's 2 brothers are both gay. And so I had it much easier than my uncles had it. But I remember I was with my parents about a year ago in this little cafe in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, this little town. And it's me and my parents and all these senior citizens, eating breakfast. And then I started talking about my work at GW with the LGBTQI community. And I was saying, and there's so much diversity, even on the biological level. I can't believe we had this conversation at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm 1 out of 1,500 births in the United States, the medical professional doesn't know at the time of delivery, biologically, is this technically a female? Is this technically a male? Is this an intersex infant? Who is this miracle that just arrived in our world? And my dad, we're just sitting there having coffee. My dad's like, well, you see the penis, you see the vagina, what's the problem? How come you can't tell? And I'm like, Dad, isn't that amazing? And isn't God incredible to create such diversity, even or especially on our biological level? And my work with religious life at GW, I always reference that. I'm saying, what an insult to the Creator, as I think of, and many people think of the Creator, to say there's only 2 options, there's only a binary out there, on the biological level, on the gender level, on the sexual orientation level. I don't think so. Look outside this window, this beautiful diversity of nature that we have out here. And why wouldn't that be reflected biologically in who we are as well? So a shout out to my parents for listening to that conversation at 9 a.m. in this little cafe surrounded by all their like senior citizen friends. And then another very small educational teachable moment. I was waiting for my shuttle to go back to the airport in Texas after the conference I was at, and I was just sitting there, and this guy was sweeping up. He's a worker at the Hilton. He was sweeping up, and I said, "Oh hi, I'm here for this LGBT conference, and isn't it amazing? There was like 4,000 of us there. We like totally took over Houston. Houston has an openly lesbian mayor. Do people know that?" I mean, I always thought Texas is like kind of crazy conservative and George Bush and stuff, but Houston is unbelievably liberal. And City Hall had rainbow lights throughout the whole conference. And there were 4,000 of us there. And boy, was it a big party. It was amazing. And so I'm chatting with the guy and I said, yeah, I'm here, doing this. And he's like, I don't really understand this thing. Someone's born a man, but then they want to be a woman. And I mean, I'm just like sitting there waiting for my shuttle. And so I said, sometimes it can feel confusing. And for me, I'm cisgender, and my identity matches my biology and my assigned gender at birth. I didn't go into that detail, but I'm like, sometimes I feel confused too. And just to say that gave him and created a safe space for us to talk a few more minutes about LGBT stuff and about LGBT topics in his home country of Ethiopia. And it was amazing. Talk about a teachable moment carved out of the safe space just by being friendly and curious and willing to share, as you just did, a little bit about my own identity. And so I hope we never underestimate that power that we have to educate, to find that teachable moment based in this wonderful, amazing, overlapping, powerful set of identities that we bring every day to our world. So in addition to educating, we're also all about advocating. And if you ever want to see an amazing advocate, Laverne Cox. Do people know Laverne Cox? Laverne Cox. For those of, can someone describe Laverne Cox in the audience? She's pretty darn amazing, yeah. Besides that, what are some of her other identities? Anybody? She's an actress. What TV show is she in?
She's Orange is the New Black.
Orange is the New Black. Amazing TV show. Do you get Netflix here?
No, we just stream it online.
Well, anyway, it's on Netflix if you want to do if you want to watch the past seasons. Any other identities? Okay, all right. She is fierce. She's amazing. She was the keynote at the Houston conference. And talk about an advocate with and for the LGBTIQ community or communities. She was amazing. And honestly, I bring my stereotypes and my ideas. I'm like looking at her, I'm like, wow, she's beautiful. So maybe she's not so, whatever, smart or fierce or amazing. I know. Isn't that ridiculous? I would think that. She is beautiful inside and out. And she is a fierce advocate with and for especially the transgender community. And her sharing at the conference was it was remarkable. And if you want to see it, I got a selfie with her. So it was quite the moment. It was quite the moment. And she called herself during her talk, she said, I'm not a role model. She goes, I'm a possibility model. I want to model what is possible for Black transgender women in this world. We can be beautiful, we can be powerful, we can be on TV, we can be sisters, we can do whatever we want. And she can. She's amazing. the other part of advocating really is about being an ally. And I know that we talk about that kind of a lot, and we sort of say, you know, being an ally is really, really important. So I want to do a little bit of another exercise. We have been talking way too much about being an ally. And I do a lot of trainings at GW on Safe Zone and being an ally with and for people who, like myself, you know, represent or have an identity that's part of the minority, sexual, or gender community. And what I want to do is have you talk to your conversational confidant one more time. And I want to have you talk about a time where you felt that you were authentically an ally with and for someone else of a different identity. So for me, I try my very, very best to be an ally with and for women. I consider myself a feminist. I try, even though I know I don't fully understand the extent of my male privilege, but I try. And I try to do it, you know, and I think of my sisters, I think of my mom, I think of my nieces, and, you know, it's just the right thing to do. And it's my calling and it's our calling to be an ally with and for people who are different from ourselves. So pair up again with your conversational confidant, and I want you to think about a time where you felt like you were really an ally. So what happened? What identity did you advocate with and for? How did you do it? Did you listen? Did you intervene when someone made a transphobic remark? What did you do? Was it a positive experience? And how did the person you were trying to be an ally with and for respond? Okay, so what happened? What was the identity you were trying to ally with and for? How did the person respond? And was it a positive experience? Okay, let's take 5 minutes and pair up again and talk about being an ally. But I do happen to have another hat because it's sunny in New Zealand, and another, I love doing this. Oh, the bouncy ball too. So there's 3 options here for 2 people. So anyone? Yes, please, come on.
Go, my sister. Go, my sister.
So please share your name. I'm going to hold the umbrella, okay? Share your name, where you're from, and describe how you were an empowered ally with and for someone who had an identity different from your own.
Okay. Kia ora everyone, my name is Tatriana, and that's my real name. And I'm Cook Island. I just arrived last night from Rarotonga. I spent 2 months there. A situation where I was empowered for someone else.
Yes, to be an ally.
Yeah, to be an ally for someone else. Was my auntie, my mother's sister, she's disabled and she has a disability. And a lot of the time it's a mental disease and she can't speak properly. So a lot of my friends, it happens within the home, like a lot of my friends and my parents' friends and other families, they impersonate her in a way that mocks her. And to me, I was like, oh my God, that is so not right. But they don't see it as something being wrong. It's like, you know, they speak to her like she's a child and she's like a 36-year-old grown woman. And she can babysit, she can cook, she can speak Māori. And so one time one of my cousins was speaking to her like a child and she was responding, but I could see that behind that whole trying to be nice, they were actually trying to mock her. So I said, can you look after a 1-year-old child? And said, no. I said, can you speak your own language? They said, no. And I said, well, this woman can and you can't, so that's your disability. My heart goes out to the disabled community. It's because, like me, I didn't choose to be like this. This is who I was born to be, and that's like her as well. She didn't choose. Maybe if she did have a choice, she would have chosen to be normal like everyone else. But I don't choose to be normal because I'm fabulous.
This for that.
I'll take the ball.
All right. Okay, someone else, come on up.
Allora, quello che votano?
And I'm not trying to promote my university by putting the logo forward. So I'll turn it around a little bit. Come on up. So if you can say your name, where you're from, and how you were an ally with and for someone else.
Kia ora tātou. My name is Inura. I came to New Zealand when I was 10 years old from Sri Lanka. My story is not about me particularly, but it's someone who really influences me and the internal and narrative in my life and the journey that I want to go in. And that's my mom. And she sees this homeless person in Queen Street in her lunch breaks, and there's a hole in his pants, so you can see his bum crack. And it's so humiliating and undignifying. And she wanted to give my dad's old pants, and she resolved to give that to this homeless person she didn't know. She's very reasonably conservative and don't usually like to speak to strangers, so she resolved to do that. She eventually couldn't find that, but her resolution, her compassion and love for people that are homeless, people sometimes say homeless people choose to be like that, but they don't see their infinite potential. They're people of God, and that love, and being a gay man and being discriminated, but the aroha that we can emanate from ourselves, our role models, and our interrelationships is a worthwhile and valid and wonderful thing.
Wow. Again, this is a very short exercise, and I'm sure we all have stories like this that are just as remarkable. So the power of being an ally can never be underestimated. Certainly we don't want people to speak for us around our identities, but we need to have people to speak with us, because we need to work together. We can't do it alone. And we're basically stronger and smarter and much more creative when we come together in groups like this. Now, the last part of my talk, and I wanted to go over it relatively quickly, is the whole empowerment area. And it's interesting, I work with a lot of students, and I have the same kind of inclination at times. It's like, okay, now that I take on a leadership role, oh great, I can be the dictator, like in charge of everything. And I don't know if it's just like human nature or Western thinking about like power and control or something, but empowerment, I think, means much more than that. And I invite you to think about empowerment in terms of servant leadership. And I don't know if has anyone heard of that term, servant leadership? A bunch of people have. It was coined originally by this gentleman named Robert Greenleaf. And I just wanted to read a very short quotation where he describes what servant leadership is. Robert Greenleaf says, "The servant leader is a servant first. It begins with a natural feeling that one wants to serve first. Then conscious choice brings one to aspire to lead. That person is sharply different from one who is the leader first, perhaps because the need to satisfy an unusual power drive or to acquire material possessions. The leader first and the servant first are two extreme types. Between them, there are shadings and blends that are part of the infinite variety of human nature." So I think Robert Greenleaf, he understood it. He basically said, we need to serve first, lead second. Because the lessons that we learn by serving, the lessons of humility, reciprocity, listening, all of those things give us credibility as individuals and as leaders. I'm not going to follow some so-called leader that's doing some power trip. out there to get the photo op, to get the name dropping opportunity, or whatever. So to be authentic, as servant leaders, we need to serve first, lead second. The last thing I wanted to bring up around empowerment, there's this amazing woman named Mary Gentile. She came up with this incredible system of teaching business ethics in business schools throughout the United States. And she happens to be an out lesbian. All right. So Mary Gentile, she basically said, I teach all these business ethics classes, and yet there's like one business scandal after another business scandal. Doesn't like anyone listen or learn anything from all of this? And so what she came up with was a very simple idea she calls giving voice to values. And what she says is, we have values around ethical behavior, and we just need to learn how and figure out how to implement them when we're caught off guard or when we see things that don't line up with our values. And I think that applies to being LGBTIQ. That we need to practice giving voice to our values of inclusion and diversity. We need to practice, because sometimes we're caught off guard. I feel caught off guard. When someone says something sexist or homophobic or transphobic, sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure what to say or what to do. But if we practice in community how to give voice to our values, we'll be prepared. It's almost like muscle memory with athletes. If you practice and practice and practice as an athlete, your mind and your body just sort of does it. And so that's the same thing that Mary Gentile is recommending for us, to give voice to our values. So our time is pretty much up, but I did want to close with a couple things. One is, all of you in this room, and especially the folks here in New Zealand, you are and can be regional leaders in the Pacific around LGBTIQ diversity and inclusion. You are so impressive. And it's so clear. I've been here like 24 hours, and just chatting with you all. Robbie, oh my God, you're an unbelievable organizer. Incredible organizer. T-Vi's flexibility with all of the logistics of this incredible program. New Zealand, you got it happening here, as do many other people representing the different island nations around this area. So please embrace your empowerment and lead. And so I just want to end with one last very, really short story. I took a shuttle to get to Dulles International Airport when I came here to New Zealand. And I was the first person picked up in the shuttle, and I felt kind of weird. I'm like, I'm not gonna sit in the back and like have some guy drive me. So I'm like, yeah, I'll sit in the front. So like we're sitting there and we're talking back and forth, and then another person comes on board, and she was there for some union organizing in DC, which was awesome. And then we're talking, and then the guy, his name is Nathan, he goes, I've never flown on a plane. And I'm like, wait, so your full-time job is to drive people to the airport, and you've never flown on a plane? He goes, I'm afraid of flying. And then the woman that we were talking with, who does the union organizing, she goes, Nathan, and her name was Cass. She goes, Nathan, you have to feel the fear and do it anyway. You have to feel the fear and do it anyway. And I think that is such an apt, wise, insightful message for us here as LGBTIQ folks. When we're afraid to embrace our sacred, precious, overlapping, intimate, and powerful identities, when we're afraid to educate and to advocate and to empower, together, let's feel that fear and do it anyway. So thank you so much for having me.